Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Morning.
Morning. Good afternoon from London.
Yeah, afternoon in some places. Happy Monday and President's Day if you're observing. Thanks for being here. As you're joining, if you don't mind dropping in the chat your name and where you recently traveled to internationally, or if you have an upcoming trip, or if you haven't traveled internationally, where you want to go. So your name and a country. London, China, Argentina, yes. España, great. Good morning. If you're just joining, feel free to drop your name and in the chat where you traveled recently internationally or where you will be traveling. And if not, what's on your wish list? We'll just give one more minute for others to join. I am dialing in from Tulum, Mexico, Philippines, Colombia, Poland. Love it. You're all at the right place. This is awesome. All right, let's get started. Thank you all for being here on a long weekend, holiday for some who are observing. So thanks for being here. My name is Daniela Santangelo, founder and CEO of Freeway Phoenix. I am here with my co-host, Jen Wong. Jen has supported Startup AZ for a number of years and is now a software engineer, and Russ Shaw, who leads the Global Tech Advocates Group and London Tech Advocates founder. Russ is actually born in New York, but spent quite a bit of time in Arizona and even graduated from Saguaro High School. So he definitely has a keen interest to help us with global impact in Arizona, and super thrilled to have both of them here. So what we're going to do today is run through a short agenda. We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, but we're super excited to bring this opportunity to you all today. For those of you that aren't familiar with Freeway, freewayphx.com is a community resource for Phoenix to really help the accessibility issue that we have in Phoenix as far as capital connections, community vibrancy. So we do events, signature events each year. We have a dashboard that's aggregating investment data, startups who have had recent funding rounds, investors, accelerators, and programs. So if you haven't checked out the dashboard, please do. And, you know, last year was really a lot about creating the digital infrastructure and having some of that fragmentation be centralized into the dashboard. We've had a lot of great feedback from founders, investors, ecosystem partners of how they've been able to kind of utilize their data, and be able to get the connections that they're seeking. I wanted to share just a quick story in my personal experience professionally at my first startup, and the availability of global opportunities just really impacted our startup in a great way. So we launched in 2016. We're developing SaaS tools for moving companies, and we realized that the problem that we were solving for locally was actually a global issue. And we had an opportunity to attend a conference in Geneva, Switzerland, and it was within 6 months of us launching. And whereas some might think that's too soon, you know, your go-to-market should be localized, we jumped on the opportunity and went to Geneva. And if it wasn't for going to that moving industry conference, we wouldn't have secured the largest mover in the UK, Pickford's, which was able to adopt our technology and be our largest account that we had. So, as we look at Freeway, expanding capabilities and expanding reach, we're ready to unlock accessibility globally. And with the help of partners like Russ and others, we're going to be able to bring those experiences to you. So today we're going to talk about why this partnership matters, what is Tech Arizona Advocates, how we're going to work together, what the Global Venture Pathfinder program is, when and what's next, how to get involved, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers at the end. So feel free to save those. If you want to drop them in the chat, feel free, and then we'll address them at the end. Jessica's going to help us moderate that. So we'll get started. All right, so Freeway Acts is really intended to be this global experiences lane for Freeway. So we want to help support early stage founders with the capital, talent, strategic partnerships globally, mentorship. I mean, there's infinite possibilities with what could be unlocked. And we really want to incorporate what we're calling, as far as the global mindset. So not only having the physical opportunities in where we can travel to, but also the mindset. As we know, as creators, innovators, builders, it's incredibly important that we continuously have that global mindset, those experiences that we can then bring back into our local communities. So if you know me, you know how much I believe in the power of community and building innovation bridges. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for us to tell the Phoenix story on what our pillars are and what we're known for and what we're looking to achieve, and then how we can build those bridges in other countries with strategic partners who are not only helping us from an ecosystem level, but even from an individual company level. And then also elevating just our presence in the global tech economy. We have so many great organizations in Arizona who are already doing a lot of work from a global standpoint. Freeway wants to join in as an alliance to help force multiply those results and really tell that story from a global level. So this partnership matters because we're emerging as a global tech hub. There is a need for more of the private sector-led initiatives to support founders. So we believe this is an opportunity to connect some of those bridges as well. And then international alliances for investment, mentorship, growth. If you're looking to expand into a certain market, we're happy to help make those connections and find your next partner in those regions. From a mentorship perspective, from a co-founder perspective, the world is our oyster, and we just really want to create opportunities to expand that reach. And we talked a little bit about the mindset and the physicality standpoint, and the core value that we're going to be incorporating with Freeway, which is really to be global. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Russ Shaw, who is celebrating 10 years for Global Tech Advocates. Congratulations with all of the hubs that you've launched globally, and we're happy that you're here.
That's great. Thank you for that, Daniela. And hi, everyone. Great to have you join us. And absolutely delighted and excited that we're setting up Tech Arizona Advocates this year. I started this journey 12 years ago, setting up a group in London called Tech London Advocates. And the idea was to create an open, inclusive, diverse community of tech leaders all coming together as volunteers to promote and support startups and scale-ups. We also operate as an independent grassroots community that really tries to talk about both the challenges and opportunities that tech hubs face when speaking to media, to government, and to key stakeholders. We now have, as you can see on the map, over 42 groups in our Global Tech Advocates community, and really delighted that Arizona is going to be our fourth group. I know we've got Alejandro Martinez on the call. He's setting up Tech New York Advocates. So by the end of this year, we'll have 5 groups in the US. So wherever you go in the world, you're able to meet an advocate or connect with an advocates group. As a community, we tend to focus on 3 broad themes. The first is around talent, skills, and diversity. The second is around emerging technologies. And the third is around tech for net zero and sustainability. And we'll talk a little bit more about those. But as you can see on this next slide, some of our objectives for this year are, first, how can we demonstrate as a community that tech can fuel global economic growth? If you just look at the geopolitical landscape, from the US to the UK to the European Union to China, India, et cetera, many nations around the world are focusing on tech to drive their economic growth. Second, we want to highlight the strengths of what we call the frontier tech hubs. Obviously, the US is the largest tech ecosystem in the world. I was just doing a television program that focuses on China. China is the second largest, and the UK is the third largest, with India following pretty quickly behind all three of these tech hubs. But there's also a lot going on in many other places around the world. Last year, we launched groups in Brazil, in Turkey, in Malaysia, in Australia, in Korea. We added a sixth group in China. So we like to be able to focus on where the hubs are and what they're focusing on. And then lastly, because our heritage is from the UK, one of the things that we are focusing on, particularly with our London group this year, but with all of our groups across the UK, we have 6 groups in the UK, is really about positioning the UK as a global leader in health tech. And we have an event on the 2nd of April. Every 2 years, I host an investor showcase event where we bring the investors in our community to come talk to us about what's on their mind. And the focus on that event is going to be about the UK as a world leader in life sciences and health tech. And that's done in conjunction with our Global Tech Advocates Health Tech Group. They've done webinars about connecting hubs, health tech hubs from the US to the UK to Europe. And about a year ago, we did an event connecting European health tech hubs to the China health tech ecosystem. So that, as a high level, is a little bit about what we're focusing on this year. So next slide, please. And then we've laid out, we're on this Tech for Growth road to 2050. As Matisse, who's on the call, who's from Seven Hills, who helped put these slides together, we're kind of a quarter of the way through the century and halfway through to 2050. So how do we create that visionary pathway to 2015? How do we drive that through cross-border collaboration? How do we look at what the sector-specific impact is going to be, whether that's fintech, prop tech, quantum, semiconductors, et cetera? And then how do we look at empowering the next generation of innovators through our community? We estimate globally we have over 40,000 in Global Tech Advocates. So we reach a lot of leaders, a lot of innovators, and we want to make sure that they feel like this is a community that can truly empower the work that they're doing. And next slide. So how do we work together? I think if you think about what we're doing is we want to really make sure that we're connecting the founders that are in Arizona and also the investors with some of the global leaders. How do we look at tech mobility and creating pathways for digital nomads and founders to engage globally? And just on that point, last July, we launched a platform called GTA Launchpad, and we would encourage all of you to take a look at that. Every group in GTA has provided a submission into the global footprint page, and that enables any scaling business who wants to expand from their home market to another market overseas or into another continent to go on, learn about that destination market. Who are the advocates that they can connect with? What are the government agencies that they should know about? What are some of the top tips for going to that destination? What are the key events that you should be participating in? So all of that there is an available resource for every advocate to use. So I'd encourage all of you to go on to that, and I'll be working with Daniela and Jen to make sure that the Tech Arizona Advocates submission to Launchpad is a great one, because we want to encourage many of our startups and scale-ups from around the world to look at Arizona and Phoenix as a great place to expand to. Strategic partnerships, we're all about, sorry, before I go on to the venture Pathfinder. We want to just make sure that we're collaborating with investors, institutions, and networks, and then tech events, bringing Arizona to global tech stages like London Tech Week. And maybe Daniela, I can hand back to you and Jen. I believe you're planning to come to London Tech Week this year.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Russ. We're going to hand it over to Jen. So Jen's going to be helping to lead the local chapter of Tech Arizona Advocates. Thrilled to be working with her. And Jen, feel free to take the stage.
Go to the next slide. So one of our initiatives that we are introducing with Tech Arizona Advocates and Freeway X is the Global Venture Pathfinder program. So what we want to do is put together exclusive groups from Arizona tech leaders for specialized trips around the world. We want to be able to curate programming and networking opportunities that would fit your needs. So if you're a founder who's trying to expand their business, or an investor who's like looking into the global market, or an economic developer, who wants to like bring companies to Arizona, whatever it is on a global level, like we're trying to put those groups together to go all over the world and tap into those markets. Next slide. So some of our upcoming global experiences include London Tech Week in early June, as well as other neighboring European markets in the following weeks. There's also a delegation going to Dubai in October. We're also on a mission to we're on a mission to expand Arizona's international tech presence and position Arizona as a global tech hub. So we plan on hosting local TAA meetups. And as the community grows, we want that community to be able to champion focused working groups that meet their needs. Next slide. So that first event, London Tech Week, we are currently at this point in the planning and building phase of TAA and Freeway X. But as that community grows, we want to bring those people and do a soft launch in London during London Tech Week. And I had actually, so like next slide, because it has like all this stuff. I had the opportunity to go to London Tech Week in person in 2017. And that was before I met Russ. So it was like a lot. And then of course, like in 2020, they pivoted to an online event, which was pretty amazing for an online event. Like they were able to bring that energy and vibe. And then I was able to go to London Tech Week again in 2022 after I met Russ. And I just have to say, it's like a phenomenal event. It's a great launching point, like into the European market. You meet so many people. There's like a lot of government support, a lot of private industry support. Russ could probably dive even deeper into like all the tidbits. And it's citywide. I've been able to go to so many different places in London, and meet so many people from all over the world. So this is where we're going to launch Tech Arizona Advocates. And then from there, we'll be able to continue growing our network. If you go to the next slide, you can kind of see the expansive nature of London Tech Week. And this is only like top of the iceberg. There's so many events that come alongside of it, like these little fringe events for the entire week. I actually might pass it back to Russ if you have any other things you want to say.
You're doing a great job, Jen.
Yes.
Really good. And it's great to see that you're such a fan. This will be the 12th year that we do London Tech Week. Last year we had over 30,000 people attend from over 140 countries. So we like to think of London Tech Week as a global tech event that just happens to take place in London. And TLA, Tech London Advocates, has been a co-founder of this since the very first one back in 2014. And like Jen, like you've said, this is kind of the main event stage for the first 3 days, but there's usually about 80 to 100 fringe events that take place all over London for the week. The fringe events are free. Most of the events in London Tech Week are free, so you don't have to buy an exorbitant ticket. But a lot of the world comes here during that week, and it is confirmed that Prime Minister Keir Starmer will open London Tech Week on the Monday. Usually every year the Prime Minister does open the week. Last year it was the Mayor of London because we were in an election during the middle of London Tech Week, so the national government figures were not allowed to participate. But he's confirmed he's very excited to be participating. So yeah, this is just a good snapshot of the types of things we'll be discussing.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So how
And
do you
then
get
just to
involved?
plant really
Oh,
quick,
good.
Jen, just to plant a seed for the launch in London Tech Week, we are figuring out where the activation is going to be. So we have a couple of exciting things in the works that we're talking to a couple of individuals who are already part of the advocates group on where that soft launch is going to be. Russ, I think also you had talked about potentially having a working group or having a session that is allowing Arizona to kind of talk a little bit more about the pillars that we have from a sector standpoint, from semiconductors to defense innovation. So we're, again, in the planning phase, but there will be more details on specifically the Arizona track that we're going to build out.
Yeah, which is great. And one of the things that we started last year, which we'll do this year, and we'll want to give the two of you a lot of focus during it, is many of our global tech advocates leaders from all around the world come to London Tech Week. And we had the most amazing breakfast during the Wednesday of London Tech Week last year. We probably had about, I think, 40 to 50 of about our over 100 global tech advocates leaders in the same room for an event. And it was just fantastic. So a great platform for you to talk about the tech scene in Arizona to an inbuilt global audience then and there. But obviously there'll be lots of other activities for you to participate in during the week.
Excited. All right, so there are several ways to get involved. If you want to be a Freeway X Global Venture Pathfinder and go on these trips, please complete the interest survey. There's a QR code. And basically what it does is it just tells us a little about yourself, what your interests are, so we might be able to curate that programming for you. Simplest thing to do, become an advocate. Join the Tech Arizona Advocates. If this is a mission that's aligned with what you are interested in, then you are a Tech Arizona Advocates. Join our LinkedIn group, and we also have a WhatsApp group. So join that. These links will be sent to you in a follow-up email. We want to grow our mentorship network. So if you want to be if you want to be a mentor or be mentored, please let us know and we will help you get connected. Participate in global events and represent Arizona as you're doing it. And then we're looking for sponsorships and activation throughout the year. So go ahead and email Daniela. Her email is founderfreeway.com. And yeah, leverage Freeway X and Tech Arizona Advocates for growth. We look forward to working with you and having you being part of our group. And if you have any friends or other people in your network who you think might be good additions to this group, please connect us.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you, Russ. Okay, we are going to open up the floor now for any questions. And feel free to just take yourself off mute and
Hey,
talk that
Bill
way.
Swartz in Scottsdale. Thanks for
Hey,
including me.
Bill.
Hi, Bill.
You obviously made enormous headway globally before deciding to do a heck of a lot in the United States, and just sort of curious about what the thought process is there, and what do you see, maybe sort of to what extent is the United States going to end up kind of catching up a bit? And if so, how could we help you do that?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Basically, all of these groups happen organically. So, I started in London. The next group to launch was our Nordics group in 2015, and it's been a little bit of a snowball effect since then, but literally people putting up their hands and saying, I want to set up a group. You've got Alejandro on the call from Tech New York Advocates. He joined our community last year. He attended a Global Tech Advocates Data and AI event. and didn't realize that there was this global network behind it. We welcomed him to the group. He and I then spoke, and he said, "Why don't you have a group in New York?" I said, "Well, nobody's put their hand up to say they're ready to do it." So it really happens by people saying, "I'm committed to doing this." It is, it is a responsibility, Bill. There's a licensing agreement that sits behind these, where I license the brand, the IP, and the operating principles for a whopping £1 a year, which I think is about a $1.25 in today's exchange rate. So it's not about making money, but it's making sure that people like Jen and Daniela, who are great, look at this and say, wow, this is a real commitment. So our California group, which started as a Bay Area group, kicked off in 2016. And then we added Florida, we added Boston last year. Obviously, we're adding Arizona and New York, and I'm now in discussions with groups for Washington, D.C., for St. Louis. And then I've just had some outreach through the Bloomberg organization in New York that the mayor of Detroit's office is interested in setting up a group in Detroit. So if you come across people who you think would want to set up groups in the US, that would be fantastic. And again, it is a bit of a commitment, but we try and make sure that we explain everything along the way. It's not a massive time commitment because we're mindful of the fact that everybody's a volunteer, everybody has a day job, but we want to make sure that the people who are running these groups are serious about it and have a vision like the one that Daniela and Jen has just shared with everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
If I can add to that, Russ, quickly, here, Luis from Florida.
Oh, Luis, hello. Sorry, I didn't know you were there.
No, it's okay. It's such a massive market that, you can't really do tech US advocates because the community, it just wouldn't happen. So there's a question about, is even a state too much, right? But yeah, I think we would need, it's nothing about the US not being a priority. It's just a question. I mean, the Bay Area was one of the first chapters to actually be created. It's just a question of the vastness of the economy, I think. At least it's my perception running Florida.
Luis, would you just maybe, sorry, I didn't realize you were on. Would you maybe talk a little bit about what you've been doing with Tech Florida Advocates, a little bit of the areas that you've been focusing on? And I know you're now connecting to, in particular, to some of our European groups as well, maybe just to give the others on the call a little bit more insight as to how an advocates group in the US is operating.
Yeah, well, my thought process. Also, by the way, I work a lot with Lanny, and there's an event that we have that we'd like to do out of Arizona, but we have another discussion. It's so it would be in March. It's pre-launch, but it's all ready. And if you'd be happy to co-host it, we'd make it across all the US-based entities. I mean, I came across and I became an advocate very early on. I met Russ at a clean tech event, and must have been 2015, and immediately, this tech for good, this community building made so much sense. And what Russ has achieved from from zero is just incredible. It's a very powerful organization, very influential, especially in the UK. So when I moved to Florida about 4 years ago, I came and I said, well, we must have, there's a question, do you do Florida? Do you do Orlando? Do you do, how do you make it work? And I think the answer should be based on reality, right, on the ground. Here in Florida, there's a huge amount of groups around technology in every city. You have the South Florida, the Tampa Bay, the Orlando, but there's not that much that actually has an international link. And also politically, they dissolved something that was called Enterprise Florida, which was like the statewide entity to attract not only technology, but any kind of companies and interact, helping companies in and out of the state. And so what made sense for us is to be across all these groups in Florida regions, right? And that didn't really have so much of an international flavor to try to build something that adds and rather than repeats something that's already there. And I think that the amazing value of the generosity and the giving nature of everybody who's an advocate is a great value to local chapters, local entrepreneurs that want to connect with the world. We try to also make it by subject matter that was relevant. So what's most relevant in your community? It could be semiconductors, it could be cybersecurity, certainly diversity, in Florida is a good one. women in tech is another thing that we actually wanted to develop here, mostly opportunistically, because some of the early advocates of tech forward advocates were super powerful women diversity leaders, women in tech. And so sometimes it is opportunistic. If you have some of the initial advocates that have a lot of strength in a particular vector, then why not bring that to the global community and generate some synergies. But that was the thinking, is where do you add value versus what do I want to do? I think and that may shift over time as well.
Thank you, Luis.
If I can, Russ, I wanted also to add from my perspective as a new add to the group. I think, meaning by being one of the top markets in technology, there is a huge business behind. So there are a lot of groups that are supporting technology with membership and looking into the business. I think the true value behind the tech advocates is that is a non-for-profit organization and is not linked to anything. Like there is no private links, or there is no one is really affecting any decision from the tech advocates, and that make us independent when we are helping people. So it's truly a network of people around the globe that's more difficult to access, that are willing to help that option of technology. And I think that as a barrier also might be something that also delay the entrance into the US as well, because everyone is looking more as how I can make a business out of those.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's, this is a community that will help extend your network, help you build your community. I mean, some of the people I've met over the years who wanted to do this, after they asked me about it, the second question was, well, how can I make money from it? And I said, well, I don't think you can, but you will make great connections and contacts that can help you down the line build out your network and potentially, benefit from that commercially. And we're very supportive of doing that. So great point.
You make negative money. Yeah.
I've made a lot of negative money from this.
Yeah, I know, but it's not what you do it.
Yes. Can I know we've got Michael Legg on the call, maybe just to give a little bit more of an international perspective. Michael, if you don't mind talking. Michael is our Global Tech Advocates Latin America lead. He's got a British accent, but he spends a lot of time in Latin America. And I think it's fair to say, Michael, we've been very busy in Latin America over the past 12 months or so. We've added groups in Brazil, in Chile. We expanded our Bogota group to be a Colombia group. I know you're working in Argentina at the moment. So would you maybe talk a little bit about your role?
Yeah, great. Interesting. Actually, I had a really good chat with Alejandro just last week to see how we could kind of build links with New York, and I know that the leaders from Argentina have been up in California, talking with advocates there. I think I've been talking to Russ for a little while about really trying to promote Latin America, the Latin American tech scene, which is incredibly vibrant, incredibly colorful, and has so much potential. And how can we kind of link Latin America with the rest of the world? And we're trying to coordinate efforts both with existing groups, growing them, and building new groups to really try and promote Latin American technology. And that coordination, I think, is going to work very well. Both coordinating the groups, Latin America, links between Latin America and the States, Latin America and London, and the other groups that we've had that we've got around the world. As Russ said, we've got new groups, very new groups in Chile and Argentina, which are yet to have their kind of official launches. Got a fantastically vibrant group in Brazil. They're helping launch a pan-Latin American tech competition this year. We're hopefully going to be bringing some strong delegation over to London Tech Week and get more kind of Latin American presence there. And just last week, we were talking about to the people who are running Columbia Tech Week to try and bring some interesting UK tech companies over for that, and vice versa. So there's a lot going on. It's a lot of evolution at the moment. A lot of groups that are in very much in the kind of growth process. And I know, speaking for all the leaders across Latin America, they're really keen to build connections with other groups in the GTA network, and see where they can learn and share ideas.
Great. Thank you, Michael. That's great.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Yes, this is Bill, if it's okay for me to jump back in again.
Please, go ahead, Bill.
So Arizona's may have a challenge. Well, Arizona's got a lot of challenges, but one challenge that it might have in common with some other areas is that Arizona is very much less than the sum of its parts. So Arizona is very unusual in the sense that we have an amazing number of very valuable threads which are opposed to having anything to do with each other. And so in this international area, I just kind of put this, now that we've got the group all together, just kind of put a pin in these thoughts. Arizona has some interesting international connections that are historic. And I do think one thing that might help this organization in Arizona is to sort of build on the existing very strong international threads that exist in reality, and sort of trying to kind of institutionally, get wrapped into some of that. And the ones that I might just mention sort of off the top of my head, Canada is first. Canada is, I think, the largest trading partner for Arizona. The Canada-Arizona Business Council, which is founded by Glenn Williamson, is an exceptionally successful nonprofit organization, exceptionally successful. Probably not easy to penetrate, but if there were a way for us to somehow form partnership with Glenn, that would be something that would be at the top of the list. Next would be Taiwan, obviously, because of the TSMC community, the Taiwanese community that has actually been built up here that's kind of interesting. France has an interesting history of connection with Arizona, both through Bull buying Honeywell and making it Honeywell Bull. And also we have a long-standing semiconductor industry history with France. Motorola's Swiss operation was a very common place for senior executives from Motorola in the old days of the semiconductor business to be rotated out. So we have a very large French-speaking population here, and that's a huge asset. Mexico is obvious. And then the Middle East in aerospace in particular. I remember Indigo Partners, which is, I'm forgetting the old CEO of Southwest Airlines, is a very famous private equity individual associated with Texas Pacific Group.
Is that Herb Kelleher?
Not Kelleher, but it'll come to me. Anyway, the CEO that took America Airlines out of bankruptcy, that individual did some equity financing deal in aerospace with people in the Middle East that was a multi-billion-dollar deal. So we have a gigantic connection to Dubai and the Emirates from Arizona in the aerospace industry, which is very interesting. And a lot of these things, these are all kind of wormholes that exist without really synergizing in any way with each other. And that would be where Arizona's biggest single opportunity is to create more synergy and to try to achieve this, as great as the sum of its parts. Because again, today we're less than the sum of our parts. So I'll stop my rant.
No, that's fantastic. Maybe just to try and share a bit more about each of those places. We do have a Tech Canada Advocates group. It's not very large, but the woman who runs it, KC, Karima Catherine, is based in Toronto. She's just recently launched an advanced manufacturing working group. So I don't know how we can penetrate the group that you've got there in Phoenix, but maybe if we can connect Jen and Daniela and yourself to KC, that would be great. I know KC's in touch with Lanny a fair bit about stuff that's going on in California. Taiwan, completely agree. I talked to everybody here about TSMC setting up in Phoenix, my hometown. We do have a Global Tech Advocates semiconductor working group. The gentleman who runs that, Josh Liu, is from Taiwan. And also one of our sponsors, our GTA sponsors, is NORLabs of Taiwan, the National Applied Research Laboratory of Taiwan. We're doing a lot of work helping them really get more embedded in the UK and Europe, because I think they feel, rightfully so, that the European landscape is underserved with semiconductors, and big fabs are being built in Germany and France, not in the UK, but they're also excited about what they can do to support UK startups and scale up. So there's a whole series of discussions going on with them. I've introduced them to the UK government and to the European Union leaders responsible for semiconductors. France, we've got a small group in France, although probably the most vibrant part of our Tech France advocates is our Global Tech Advocates Black Women in Tech has a very vibrant chapter in France. I was at their launch event a couple of years ago. It was fantastic. So we obviously do a lot of work on diversity and inclusion. And so that's certainly a component of what we have there. And then Dubai, UAE, we have a Tech UAE advocates group. We're just going through a little bit of a leadership change at the moment. The gentleman who is running the group, his scale up has just grown so quickly that he's had to say, I need to step back in the next 2 to 3 months. So I've had discussions with 2 leaders in Dubai, but we're also talking to Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi, and to kind of say to them, look, we'd love to bring them much closer to what we're doing in Tech UAE advocates. I know that Jen and Daniela showed GITEX in Dubai as a key event in October. We've been involved with that event for the past 3 years. GITEX is really expanding their footprint beyond Dubai into Europe, into Southeast Asia. I'm likely to go to Nigeria in September. They're going to do their inaugural GITEX Nigeria event there. So we've got good relationships into GITEX. So hopefully as this group gets off the ground, we can make some of those connections. And hopefully, to your point, Bill, they will kind of round out some of the strands that you've already got. I did have an opportunity when she was over here 3 years ago for COP26. I met Mayor Gallego and had a chat with her about who we are. This was obviously pre-Tech Arizona Advocates. I think the opportunity is ripe for us to hopefully go back to her office and say this group is now setting up and running. And so how do we make sure that we connect with that leadership in Phoenix, both at the city level and also at the state level? And then I know we've got a question from Trey while I'm talking about public sector. How is this organization leveraging the public sector to expand? We do so probably indirectly. The focus of this group is largely private sector driven. We do not take any funding from the public sector, except for maybe the occasional discrete project that some of our groups are working on. So we kind of want to do that to make sure that we are independent from the public sector. But that's not to say that we don't work and collaborate with them. We do a lot here in the UK. I've actually do some work with the US Department of Commerce. I try and get back to the Select USA Investment Summit every couple of years. I had the honor of meeting Secretary Gina Raimondo when she was the Secretary of State for Commerce. We have great connections into the Singapore EDB, in Dubai, the Digital Chamber of Commerce and World Trade Center, Japan, their JETRO organization. So India, the High Commission of India. So we've got good relationships into many governments. More to say, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. If they want to work with us or talk to us about who we are and what we're doing, we're really happy to do that. But that's probably as far as we go, because we want to be independent from government. So if we disagree with where governments are going or what they're doing, we don't feel like we're limited in our voice to say so. And maybe if I can give one example, I know I'm going on a bit, but 2 years ago, here in the UK, we felt that our government was not doing enough to support the UK semiconductor sector. We were watching the US CHIPS Act being implemented and all the investment going into Phoenix. The EU approved a 50 billion euro funding initiative. We've seen Made in India, Made in China initiatives underway, and the UK was behind the curve. So we, GTA, with many voices from the semiconductor sector, sent an open letter to then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in a very nice way saying, where's the UK semiconductor strategy? The MP responsible for tech and innovation got in touch with me a few weeks later. 2 months after that, the UK semiconductor strategy was launched. 3 months after that, the Semiconductor Advisory Panel for the UK was introduced. And last year, with our pushing and nudging, they announced their support for a National Semiconductor Institute. So we didn't agree with the UK and where they were 2 years ago, but now we work very closely together. And I think they see us as a valuable voice and convener as they try and really make sure that the UK has a vibrant chip sector. So I just wanted to give those as some examples for you, Trey, so that you had that background. Other questions? Jen, Daniela, is there anything that you want to add?
I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Like I said, we are in the building and planning phases for now until London Tech Week when we do our soft launch. So we want to get input from everyone here and beyond. So we thank you, Bill, for the suggestions. I thought those were phenomenal. And so, yeah, we want to continue getting that type of info and contacts and stuff to build this out to be something very valuable.
Great. And I'm just so excited we're getting a group. I went to high school in Scottsdale. I'm a graduate of Saguaro High. So Bill, probably not too far from where you are. So great to see after all of these years that the connection is strong. And I know Daniela and Jen are looking at an event in November. So I'm planning to hopefully come back and we'll do an in-person event when I'm back in Phoenix.
That's great. I appreciate being included. I think I'm just speaking for myself, and Daniela may feel the same way. One of the challenges here in Arizona is that there's a center of gravity in the institutional part of the local ecosystem that is very difficult to compete with, and it is a competition. And so this organization, I think, can help me and others that are involved in having sort of more of a framework around us that gives us a little bit more, at least the appearance of some level of institutional credibility for members of the community that care about that, to counteract the fact that I personally am a disruptor and I'm intentionally staying out of the center of the ecosystem myself. So much appreciated.
That's great.
Thank you.
We have loads of disruptors in the community. And look, what you've just shared is not uncommon in some of the other hubs that we've come across. And so, if there are ways in which we can help you to either break that or kind of circumvent around some of that thinking, I like to describe us as we're organization agnostic. We'll work with any organization, and we work with loads of organizations in many different tech hubs around the world, because I think sometimes when we set up, people don't quite get us, or they might see us as a threat. And I always say, look, we complement what's already in the ecosystem. I know I've been trading messages with Alejandro about him getting started in New York. There are great organizations in New York. I don't think we've quite seen any that are either fully volunteer-led the way we are, or one that has such great connections into a global network. I mean, there are great organizations out there like Endeavor, who I think do fabulous work, but I know for organizations like Endeavor, there's also a price tag for being a member, as there are in many other organizations in different markets. So being able to join our community for free and getting this access, I hope is a differentiator that benefits you and many others in our community.
Very cool. Last call for questions. Any last words? I think we're ready to wrap up. We'll be following up with information on how to join the groups, how to get involved, events that are upcoming in the future. So keep an eye out for your emails, or join the email list if you haven't already. If you're on this call, then we will send you a follow-up.
Thank you for including me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your comments. Nice to meet all of you. Hope to see you in person in Phoenix later this year.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.